Ahoy there, my children of the Force. Welcome to Star Wars Transmission? Transmission? I'm forgetting the name of my own YouTube channel. Welcome to Star Wars Transmissions. I'm your boy Dan, and with me, the beautiful and lovely Miss Danielle.
I don't know if you've ever called me by my full name on here before.
I had to have.
You don't usually call me Danny girl. Not usually the full
I don't give you the full Danielle.
Not typically, but that's okay.
Well, with me is Miss Danny, and we are going to be diving into the Bad Batch episode 4, giving you our thoughts, diving into some Easter eggs and callbacks, because there was a lot that I found in this episode, and I'm so excited to go into those and to talk about those with all you guys. So before we get started, as always, this is your spoiler warning. If you have not watched episode 4, you freaking knucklehead. First off, what are you doing? How could you have not watched the Bad Batch yet? But secondly, get those booty cheeks out of here, because we're going to be dropping spoilers left and right. So man, I could not wait to talk about this episode with you. We have not discussed this episode at all yet, you and I.
I know, that's what I get for going into the office today. I didn't even have a chance. Like, usually I troll Twitter for at least like 5 minutes before these, and I didn't even have time to do that. So, I mean, all of the Easter eggs, man, they are all on your shoulders tonight.
This is like, I felt like big brain moment with some of the Easter eggs I found. I really enjoyed this episode a lot, way more than I thought I would. And the more I kept thinking about it, especially when I was working on the Easter eggs, the more I was like, man, I think I love this episode. I think this wound up being one of my favorite Bad Batch episodes. It's not going to be my absolute favorite Bad Batch episode, but it's one of my favorite Bad Batch episodes. It was just so much fun.
It really was. And it's so funny. Like, it was just such an opposite to what we had last week, where last week we were like, it was great, it was gritty, and this was just super fun. I felt like I was in a video game. It was great.
That's an excellent way to put it. Feeling like you're in a video game, especially with a racing game, right?
Oh yeah, Mario Kart all day long.
Totally in my notes was like, this episode, essentially we're going to talk about Riot Racing, but Riot Racing is basically Star Wars Mario Kart.
Oh, absolutely.
I loved it. It was so great. Now, I'm assuming this episode is going to get the filler moniker. People are going to say this is a filler episode and didn't do a lot to move the season story along all that much. And I will say,
you're not wrong.
I agree that it didn't move the overall arching story for this season a ton. Still found it very entertaining, still found it very fun, and it also does plant some seeds that are probably going to sprout as the season progresses.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the big thing this episode, is just laying some groundwork for us. But yeah, otherwise that was laying the groundwork for things to come.
Yeah, this is a 16 episode season. I think a lot of times too, we forget what it's like to have episodes that I hate to use the term filler, but kind of episodes that don't move the overall season story along as much as other episodes, especially when there's 16 episodes in a season, because a lot of times we're getting series that are 6 episodes for the season, or 8 or 10. So with 16, you got a lot of episodes to be able to let the story breathe a little bit and have episodes that are a little bit more fun while still planting some seeds that I think will sprout later on.
And let's be honest here, not every episode of the Clone Wars or every episode of Rebels really means something or is meant to move the story along. Some of it's just fun to enjoy yourself. Be a droid floating through space.
That is exactly what I was thinking of. Oh, what's that droid's name again? One of my absolute freaking favorite moments in Rebels. He's like the Alan Rickman version of a droid in Star Wars.
I can't remember the name of his.
I'm drawing a blank. He's an absolute curmudgeon. He's the droid that is all about like manifests Oh my God, it's going to kill me. It'll come to me later. But yes, that is exactly what I was thinking of. Mind melting, baby. But yeah, the other thing too is it's a good reminder too that Star Wars animation, it's not just strictly for adults, right? It's for a broader audience. So we're going to get these episodes that are a little bit more just kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say goofy, but just fun is probably a good way to describe this episode. Yeah. There were some really, really great Easter eggs and callbacks in the episode that I thought were really cool. We got to see Tech shine in this episode. I also think the big takeaway for me with this episode is that I think we're getting hints that the Bad Batch's time with Sid will soon be coming to an end, which we're going to dive into more as we progress forward. But yeah, those were some of my big takeaways with the episode. Now, you ready for a recap, homegirl?
I'm ready for a recap.
Let's first do a quick recap of what happens in the episode, and then we'll kind of dive into some more stuff, and we'll break down some of our Easter eggs and callbacks that we found. So the episode opens at Sid's parlor on Ord Mantell, where we see Omega and Omega and Wrecker playing holo chess, while our homeboy Tech is playing virtual sabacc in the background, which I love that he's playing virtual sabacc in the background. Like, is our homeboy gambling back there? But I thought that was great that he's in the background playing virtual sabacc, and you can't really tell in this screenshot, but yeah, that's sabacc on that screen right there.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
When I watched it.
Yeah, and I didn't include this in my Easter eggs, but yeah, holo chess, that's obviously from A New Hope, and sabacc we see in a bunch of different Star Wars stuff, but most notably in Solo, when Han wins the Millennium Falcon. But anyway, we then learn that Sid wants Tech, Wrecker, and Omega to provide security for her because Echo and Hunter are off on their own mission delivering Nerf Nuggets. So basically our boys are doing Uber Eats in Star Wars.
I love it. It just is so stupid. I love it.
I love that they're literally called Nerf Nuggets. So Star Wars has nuggies. In the Star Wars galaxy, there are nuggies.
My God, can you get those at Uga's? Oh my God, what's her name?
Uga's Cantina?
Yeah.
We were literally just talking about Galaxy's Edge and trying to figure out if we could swing going to Florida to go to Galaxy's Edge. We were having this conversation last night. It would not shock me if you could buy Nerf Nuggets in Uga's Cantina.
Are we sure that Nerf Nuggets are a food? I also feel like
that's true. It could be like pellets for the Nerfs to eat.
I don't know. Just don't want to assume in the Star Wars universe.
Immediately, my mind was, "Oh my God, they've got nuggies in Star Wars. This is great."
Anyway, I just derailed your recap.
I would like to point out, and I mentioned this to you when you were watching it, that we now know Sid's full name. We learned that in this episode. Her full name is Siddarin Scaleback. What a name.
It is really great.
Siddarin Scaleback. That's like it sounds almost fantasy, right? I feel like that's almost like a fantasy, like you would see that name in Lord of the Rings or something.
Or in Star Wars.
But yeah, we're in Star Wars. I love that we got her full name and it's not just Sid. So we then travel to Safa Toma, which is a new planet in Star Wars. And I thought this was really great. I love whenever we get to go to new planets, new places. And this planet was just a ton of fun for me. Because this entire episode just felt like one gigantic callback to the Phantom Menace and the pod racing scene in the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. So getting to see Safa Toma for the first time, seeing Riot Racing for the first time and what's going on I literally was like sitting by myself, eating my lunch, smiling. Like, this is so spectacular. And we learned that Sid came to Safa Toma to bet on Riot Races, which again, like we talked about, is basically Star Wars Riot Racing.
Mario Kart?
Or excuse me, yeah, Star Wars Mario Kart. Give me that video game. Star Wars Riot Racing. Who would not want to play that?
I would rather play Riot Racing than pod racing, I think. I don't know. I feel like they were doing some fun things in Riot Racing.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Where's my video game?
I agree 100%. Sonia, welcome to the chat. Glad you're joining us. We're talking about Riot Racing being Star Wars version of Mario Kart and how I want Lucasfilm Games to get on that. Make that a video game that we could play. Can I also just point out, look how happy Omega's face is. Omega's face is like all us nerds that are like, this is amazing. This is like Star Wars Mario Kart. That's how I felt as soon as they started showing Riot Racing. But I just loved seeing how happy she was. It instantly made me happy. And I was like, this little girl, man, like everything is such a wonder to her.
I also love on this screenshot, like Sid's got a little bit of a smirk, a little bit of a smile on her face, and she's kind of looking at Omega.
Like, yeah, this is great that this little girl is enjoying this.
How can I make money off of it?
Oh, that's true. But yeah, I loved Omega's enjoyment and excitement from seeing these races. As I mentioned, Riot Racing is very similar to pod racing, except that racers are allowed to attack their opponents, and pretty much anything goes during the race, which isn't the case in pod racing like we saw in the Phantom Menace. Although our homeboy Sebulba would tell you a different story. Our homeboy's a cheater, though. But in pod racing, you're not allowed to attack your opponents. But
sure.
In Riot Racing, we see pretty much anything goes.
Got some dirty tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, so you can attack your opponent with blaster bolts, with saws, clamps. I'm trying to think, was there anything else?
I mean, yeah, you said blasters.
Blasters, yeah. Oh, the one guy, the Mad Bomber, wasn't he dropping bombs?
I mean, it was right out of the Mario Kart playbook.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's seriously like Lucasfilm Games. If you're not making a freaking Riot Racing video game, you guys are absolutely slipping and tripping.
Hey, Mr. Brick Guy.
Mr. Brick Guy, welcome to the chat. So, as I mentioned, to me, a big part of why I love this episode so much was it brought me back to 1999. I was 13 years old, going to see The Phantom Menace and being like so damn excited and happy about the pod racing scene. And watching this episode, that I felt like a little kid again. I felt like I was watching the pod racing scenes in The Phantom Menace all over again. And I love that the racetrack on Toma, which is aptly called Toma Speedway, even looks quite similar to... Oh, where did I miss it? There it is. To the Grand Arena on Tatooine, which is what we see in the Phantom Menace. That's where the annual Boonta Eve Classic Pod Race is held that we saw in the Phantom Menace. So I loved coming to this planet. I loved seeing the Riot Racing again. It was just, this entire episode was just such a great callback to the Phantom Menace, and it was so much fun for me.
I was just thinking the next screenshot with the flags. All I kept thinking is like the music that plays when in Mario Kart, where they're like showing you the quick preview.
Oh my god!
And it's beep beep beep.
I mean, it is like that's guaranteed like just straight up moneymaker for Lucasfilm Games.
Yeah, it would be so fun, so fun.
So now we see Sid's got a ringer, her droid Teo, who's voiced by our homeboy Ben Schwartz, a.k.a. Jean-Ralphio from Parks and Rec. Soon wins the race that he's in, earning Sid some money. I absolutely love Teo, which is no surprise. We're a big Parks and Recs fan, and Ben Schwartz is hilarious. So I loved Teo, and every time he kept calling Tech human, it cracked me up.
It was pretty great.
I felt like it was like when I call people brah.
Oh my god. Yeah, I can see that. Human. Even.
It was, and his delivery and his cadence and how he acts. Ben Schwartz is just an absolute. He's a gem. We got to pour one out for our boy though, because he bites the dust. Hopefully that's not
twice.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the last we see of Teo, because he bites it later in the episode. But I'm hoping that's not the last we see of him. We're then introduced to the I don't know if it's pronounced Daoudin. This species, the Daoudin gangster, Malegi, that's how you pronounce his name. And we realize, okay, yeah, this is why Sid wanted some muscle, because she's got a past with Malegi, and we don't exactly know much information about that past besides that, hey, these two do not like each other. They have some sort of history. They don't like each other, and that's pretty much all that we know. They then make a bet on the next race, and if Teo wins, Malegi pays Sid. If the Nosarian wins, which is that's this guy right here, this turtle-looking dude, Sid has to pay Malegi. I'd like to point out that Malegi's champion is named Jet Venom, this dude right here, which... What an excellent name, Jet Venom.
It is a great name. Oh my gosh. It's a little smarmy. I guess he's fast.
I feel like
he has to be fast. He's going to win.
It's such a fitting name, Jet Venom. Just, yeah, love it. And then once the race begins, things take a bad turn for our boy Teo when Jet Vermin and another one of Malegi's thugs cause the droid to crash. Since Sid doesn't have the credits to pay Malegi, Omega jumps in and bets double or nothing that Teo can win. Malegi agrees, but takes Sid as collateral. So one other thing I'd like to mention is that I like that Omega learned how to bet double or nothing at the beginning from the beginning of this episode when she and Wrecker were playing holo chess and were making bets using Mantel Mix, which that's that like popcorn snack that we saw them eating in season 1.
Didn't they bet Mantel Mix when they played previously too?
You might be right.
I think they did.
You may be right in season 1. I think you might be right. Right. And I love that after Wrecker loses to her, he wants to keep playing and he bets her double or nothing before Sid interrupts them. But could we just talk about our homegirl Omega's laugh right here? Like, I loved taking this screenshot. It just made me chuckle. There was just so many great moments in this episode that made me chuckle.
She's just so happy, and poor Wrecker is just...
He's wrecked, bro. He's wrecked that she just walloped him. But yeah, I really like the fact that she's learning how to bet double or nothing from her game of holo chess with Wrecker, which just goes to show how resourceful, how smart she is, how she thinks on her toes, and she's kind of like a sponge at this point.
I was gonna say, I love how we're 4 episodes in and we've already seen her learn and grow and already apply those things that she has been learning in different situations, whether it's like learning about the different ships, double or nothing, the freaking bow and arrow that she has, from the first season. She's awesome. Yeah, she's
a very smart little girl, and like I said, very, very intuitive, very resourceful. Tekka, Rek, and Omega then are working on repairing Teo after the speeder crash. But after repairing Teo, and I love this scene, by the way, but after repairing Teo, the droid is again destroyed after a speeder runs them Metal Cheeks over. So now they're without a racer. So our homeboy, Tech, steps in and agrees to take Teo's spot in the race, and then eventually wins, clearing Sid's debt to Malegi. The episode concludes with the clones picking Sid up from Malegi, who tells them that Sid can't be trusted. Which, again, to me, that was one of my biggest takeaways from the episode is Sid's shady past, that we don't know much about it. Malegi telling the clones they can't trust Sid, and how that's going to play out for the rest of the season.
You also have to think, I know Sid has not been an extremely trustworthy character, but you also can't trust Malegi. Like, I feel like he's also trying to help himself here and sow seeds of doubt.
That's a great point, right? Who's to say this guy's a trustworthy source of information? He's a gangster, right? So he could be pulling their legs. He also could potentially, a thought that I had is, could he potentially want them to work for him at some point? And that's why he's trying to maybe put a wedge between them and Sid.
That could be. I mean, he did see how resourceful they are and how they just pulled a win out, and he definitely wasn't expecting it.
So in terms of moving the overall season story along, this episode really didn't do that a whole lot. With that said, as I mentioned, it hints at something that we spoke about when breaking down episodes 1 and 2, which is that I think the writers are setting the stage for Sid to either betray the Bad Batch or for the Bad Batch to no longer work with her. And I'm worried it may be the former versus the latter. So in episode 1, we meet Sid's friend Fee, played by my homegirl Wanda Sykes. And we learn that Fee was who the Bad Batch were doing that mission for at the very start of the season, right? They're on that planet that looked like Pandora from Avatar. They're getting chased by crabs. That's who they were doing that mission for Fee. Fee was the one that told Sid and the Bad Batch about Count Dooku's war chest.
The war chest?
The war chest.
Are you sure it was a war chest?
The Count Dooku's war chest, the 50 billion times that we heard that referred to as a war chest. Right later in that same episode, we hear Sid tell the Bad Batch, hey, her operation is not going to be around forever, and that the Empire will eventually take over Ord Mantell. So now when we couple that with what Malegi told Wrecker, Tech, and Omega in this episode, I think it's only a matter of time before the Bad Batch are no longer working for Sid, and I'm worried that Sid is going to betray the Bad Batch.
That's my thought too. I think whether it's her just betraying them, whether it's her betraying the Bad Batch, and then maybe she rethinks it and then decides to help them. I don't know, but I think ultimately I don't think it's going to be the Bad Batch leaving her. I think it's going to be Sid. My gosh. Going against the Bad Batch for one reason or another.
I'm worried that she may sell them out to save her skin. And we don't know anything really about her past. So we don't know what she's capable of and what she could do to the Bad Batch, or what her motivations could be. But even last season, I figured that Sid couldn't be trusted. I actually made a video about that, talking about how I thought Sid would eventually betray the Bad Batch. So to me, it seems very likely that we are going to see Sid betray the Bad Batch. And what I think could happen is that the Empire is going to come to Ord Mantell, and to save her skin, she's going to sell out the Bad Batch. So she's going to sell the Bad Batch out to the Imperials, and that's going to force Clone Force 99 to go back on the run again, and potentially them starting to work with Fee.
I kind of hope at some point maybe she goes back on her thought. And the reason why I'm saying that is just for like character development. Like, they've been sowing the seeds for so long that she's not trustworthy. I would hope that it does. I feel like it would do a little bit more for payoff for her character development than just saying she's going to be the bad guy and sell the Bad Batch out and not do anything else. Or like do anything else to help them.
Yeah, and because they did show us, or is it Tech, I believe? She tells that she owes them one.
Yep.
It's at the end of the episode, right?
It is. Yeah. She said, "Oh, I owe you one," and Tech was like, "Yeah, you do."
Yeah, and especially with this episode, it definitely felt like there was a little bit more of a bond building between them and her.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do see her betray them, I think it's going to be a big deal. Now, another scenario that I could also see that may play out is the Bad Batch potentially finding out more about her past, and that maybe whatever her dealings were in the past, that could force the Bad Batch to no longer want to work with her. So don't know what that could potentially be. That could be anyone's guess. But what if she did something to help the Empire with their takeover? Or if she did something to help with Order 66, and maybe that, and I didn't look into Ord Mantell. I meant to before we started our stream, but I just didn't have time. But I wonder, could that be why Ord Mantell is free of the Imperials?
Could definitely be. Yeah, maybe she's sold them out, or not sold them out, but like is feeding the Empire information.
That could be it, right? We know she will do whatever to get a quick buck, so she could potentially be feeding the Empire. That's a great idea, that maybe she's feeding the Empire information that keeps them off her back and allows her to operate on Ord Mantell for right now. That could absolutely be a possibility. I just think at this point, with what we've been seeing in the series thus far, I don't think we're going to see the Bad Batch work with her all that much longer. I think by the end of the season, they're probably going to no longer be working with her.
Someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah, something's going to happen. And we talked about this when we did our breakdown for episode 1 and 2. You don't hire an actress like Wanda Sykes. You don't hire a person with recognition like Wanda Sykes to just have her appear for, what was it, 30 seconds, a minute?
It was
however
so fast.
long she appeared, right? You're gonna get that actress to sign on with the idea that, hey, you're gonna appear in future episodes. Why would they need her around if it's not to give the Bad Batch work? So I think when you factor all this in, I think we're definitely seeing signs here that are pointing to eventually Sid's going to be out of the picture, at least for a little bit. I could definitely see a scenario, like you said, even if we find out whether it's her selling out the Bad Batch or something, and the Bad Batch are no longer working with her, I could definitely see her being a part of the series moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to see her again.
Now let's switch gears here and talk about my boy Tech. Love that my boy got to shine in this episode.
Love that nerd.
Dude, it was cracking me up when the racing announcer was like, Tech, that's it? That's the racer's name? That's all he's got? I love that.
Yeah, I was also giggling. Like, yeah, there's no fancy nickname. Of course, he just went straight to the point.
Yep.
Short and
all
simple.
All about business.
Yep.
And
Tech.
I really enjoyed Tech's racing scene. It was a lot of fun. It was very exciting, and it's a perfect example of Tech's personality. His resourcefulness shows how smart he is, and surprise, surprise, Kevin Kiner's score during that scene, that racing scene, and the episode really was excellent.
Yeah, it really was just bringing us to Mario Kart. It was, we've said it so many times, but it was just like sitting on the edge of my seat, just like bopping my head along.
Bro, it slapped.
I
The
know.
music during the racing scene absolutely slapped. Dude, I feel like Kevin Kiner's scores, they're like letting him get weird with it. Like if you go back and watch any other Clone Wars season outside of season 7, and really it's kind of just the Siege of Mandalore arc, but if you go back and watch some of the music and the score is kind of straightforward. It's kind of more traditional of what you would expect a score to be like in a TV show. But starting with the Siege of Mandalore, you could see him taking like a more weird turn with his music, and I love it. I'm so here for it.
Give me all the weird.
I absolutely love how Kevin Kiner is scoring this series so far. I also love that Tech's strategy to win is such a Tech way of doing things. Instead of opting to use force and his weapons, he first diverts his power from his weapon system to his shield for added protection, and then to get from last place into a position to possibly win, he straight up jettisons his weapons, making his speeder lighter and thus faster, which again is just such a tech thing to do, right? I think most people would be like, I need my weapons. People are going to be shooting at me. I need to be able to shoot back. But in tech's mind's like, no, bro, I need to go faster. That's how I'm going to win this thing. He also figured out a way to win by analyzing the schematics of the track and figuring out that's going to be his best approach for him to win.
Strategy all day long. Loved
it. And I loved when the fans are chanting his name and he got a curtain call and he gave them like just his little like wave, right? The little 2-finger wave. Like I loved it. And I was torn on tape. I should have took a screenshot of both, but you see when he's getting, the crowd is chanting his name. It's just the shot is from his back out to the crowd and they're all chanting his name. And I love that shot too. I thought it was really, really great. So I just really enjoyed seeing that moment. One thought that occurred to me during this scene here. Here's a clone that the Empire wanted to kill because they felt he was useless and was a detriment to their grip of power on the galaxy. But here our homeboy is, along with Clone Force 99 and the other clones across the galaxy who are no longer in Imperial service, right? And our boy's doing his thing. He's being awesome. He's winning races. He's helping the galaxy. He's found a purpose outside of just being essentially a killing machine.
Which is really awesome. The show just goes to show, like, just because they all look the same doesn't mean they're all going to act the same. They all have a purpose, a bigger purpose.
Absolutely. But I also felt like that same sentiment was echoed in this BX series droid that we see here. So this is a BX series commando droid. We see these droids throughout the Clone Wars. They were used. They were essentially like the separatist version of like assassins. And although Sidious gave the order for the Trade Federation to shut down all battle droids, we know, especially from last episode, that not all battle droids were shut down. And our homeboy here has a purpose after the Clone Wars, and he's no longer just a killing machine at someone's behest. So I really like that we're seeing that echo in this droid here as well as in tech.
So I feel like you saw that in a bunch of the droids. For all of the smack that they were talking to Teo about being a droid, like look at how many droids when they went down the lineup, or how many of the drivers were actually droids.
Yeah, my thought was because of how dangerous the racing is.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, which we're gonna get into those droids. So before we dive into the Easter eggs that I caught, do you have a favorite moment or moments during the episode?
I just loved, like, actually, the one that comes to mind is when Teo was run over the second time, which is so awful. I love Tech's racing scenes and the music was great, but I literally laughed out loud when Teo was just totally wiped out. And then it was kind of like, oh, look at what's, oh my God. The M guy. Oh my, I'm like
Malegi?
Oh my God. My brain is not working right now. Malegi. Yeah, when Malegi comes sauntering up with his crew just after Teo gets wiped, I'm like, suspicious.
I really enjoyed when Teo was introduced. Again, he's kept calling Tech human, and in my mind, I'm just thinking like, yo, bro, that was real world version of what Teo is doing. So I really enjoyed that. I love the Tech racing scene, but probably the moments that were my favorite was seeing Omega's joy. I don't know. Probably because, like I said, when watching this episode, it just kept reminding me of being a young kid going to see the Phantom Menace, and this episode was just so reminiscent of the Phantom Menace that I really enjoyed seeing how happy Omega was in multiple instances in this episode, and then the introduction of Teo was probably my favorite.
Yeah, it was just a fun episode all around.
It really was. All right. You ready to dive into these Easter eggs and callbacks?
Sure.
We got a bunch. And this is one of those episodes I probably have missed some because there was a lot. So if there are any Easter eggs or callbacks that you caught that we did not, let us know down in the comments or let us know in the chat, because I feel like there was a lot that you could potentially miss. All right, so let's start at the beginning. We get a Godel eating a Meluron. Meluron first appeared in the Clone Wars, but was also in a bunch of other Star Wars shows. It's been in a bunch at this point. And then
There's a whole plot line around it in Rebels.
Yeah. So I love that inclusion of a Godel who the Godels also appeared a ton in the Clone Wars. But yeah, we just see him munching on a Meluron. So I thought that was great. We also get, so we got a bunch of species in this episode, and I feel like at this point the Bad Batch is probably using a lot of the like animation designs from the Clone Wars, because a lot of the species that we see in this episode, not every one of them, but a lot of them we saw a bunch throughout the Clone Wars. So you see here, we got a Pantoran here, another Pantoran behind Tech. We got some more Godels over here. You could see an Aqualish right there. This guy, this goofy looking like triangle head guy, is an Arcona. And we also see an Arcona later on in the episode get murked by a rogue blaster bolt.
Yep. Is it the same guy?
I'm not sure. I had that thought that it might be the same guy, but I'm not positive. There's some Twi'leks that we see. There's one right there. We could see the Leku of another one right there. Is it Leku or is it Togrutas that have Leku? I think, I can't remember. But anyway, they're head tails. We could see another Twi'lek like right there behind Tech. So we got a bunch of different species that we see here. We also get, so this is right after our homeboy gets murked, and people just keep partying like nothing has happened.
Yay!
It's just like, yeah, this must be a regular occurrence in Riot Racing. We get a Rodian right here. We've got Snivian right here, which, what a name. I love that species name, Snivian. A Bith, who our boy's mouth totally looks like a bunghole. And then I think I could not see what this species was back there. But if you know what it is, let me know down in the comments, because I would love to know that species. I couldn't figure out what it was.
That human looks kind of sketch.
Are they missing some teeth?
I don't know. She's looking a little rough.
But yeah, I mean, you're supposed to definitely get the sense that Safatoma is a little rough around the edges.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
We also get a Nikto, and I love, so this is right here is Bosco the Mad Bomber Brick. So that was the guy that I mentioned earlier that was dropping bombs during the race. Bosco the Mad Bomber. We also get another Nikto named Steel Claw Kane. Loved the names of the racers. They were so good.
I feel like that would have been a fun like round table to brainstorm at.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so again, I don't know if it's Dowutin. That's the species of our homeboy Malegi right here, this big boy. Next to Malegi on his right, we got a Trandoshan. We got our homeboy Jet Venom. He's a Nosarian. Nosarian? Not sure how to pronounce that name, but that's a species that first appeared in the Phantom Menace, which that's going to be a recurring common theme we're going to hear in some of these Easter eggs. First appeared in the Phantom Menace. We also see a Gamorrean right over here, which we've seen them a bunch in Star Wars. In the beginning of the episode, Hunter and Echo are hauling Nerf Nuggets, which are made from an animal that's very similar to a bison called Nerfs, which is a callback to Empire Strikes Back when Princess Leia calls Han a Nerf herder, which I love. A friend of mine at work calls me a Nerf herder, and it always gives me a good laugh when she does that. We see some DUM series pit droids. I love that we got to see some pit droids. They first appeared in the Phantom Menace, which again is another nod to the pod racing scene in that film. I love that we got to see the pit droids in this episode. We also got to see some advertisements during the race. So this is in the racetrack. You could see right over here, this first advertisement is an advert. Well, actually, you know what? Give me 1 second. Yes, flash speeder. That was the name of that.
Flash speeder.
Yes, a flash speeder. And can you guess where they first appeared?
Phantom Menace.
The freaking Phantom Menace. That's where they made their first appearance. And we also see, let me go back, an advertisement for Coruscant right over here, which Coruscant also first appeared in the Phantom Menace. Now, I'm just realizing that. I don't know why I didn't put that in my notes, but yeah, Coruscant first appeared in the Phantom Menace.
That is pretty awesome.
So a lot of Phantom Menace callbacks in this episode that was really, really great. This one could be a stretch. I might be stretching here, but we get we get that moment where Omega betting double or nothing. With Malegi, it reminded me of Qui-Gon's bet with Watto in the Phantom Menace. Like I said, that could be a stretch though. But to me, with all the Phantom Menace nods,
it wouldn't be a surprise.
It wouldn't shock me if that was done intentional.
Yeah.
So as we talked about our commando droids earlier, right? The BX series commando droids, they first appeared in the season 1 Clone Wars episode Rookies, which I love. One thing, just to go back to this guy, love our homeboy's name. So his name is Haxon the War Gnome Trajanix.
I loved the War Gnome. That was another one that made me giggle.
Like, where did they come up with it calling him a gnome? But yeah, I loved it. I thought that was a great name. Right, and just these droids. I love this droid here. So this droid's name. Well, first, he's like a hybrid B1 series battle droid, and with the body of a protocol droid, and his name is Quick Draw Quasar. Which, what a name. His name is probably my favorite, and I love that he does the little gun.
Little finger guns.
The finger gun, pew, pew. Which is so good. And this seemed very much like a callback to Attack of the Clones, when we see C-3PO's body get, a B1 battle droid placed on C-3PO's body. So that was great. There's also a protocol droid named the Trickster Flash Ractor, and another protocol droid named Hyperrod. So I love that. I love that we're getting the protocol droids, and just all their names were ridiculous.
I love how they also all had like wild paint jobs.
Right? It was so cool. This scene had me cracking up. So this is when Tech is fixing up Teo, and Teo is basically realizing that his arms and legs have yet to be put back on, and he starts freaking out. Totally reminded me of the Empire Strikes Back scene where C-3PO starts freaking out that he doesn't have his arms and his legs. And then I literally picked up on this Easter egg as I was making my lunch for work tomorrow, and you were watching the episode, and I heard it. I literally dropped what I was doing to go put this into my notes.
And ran.
Yes.
Ran into the other room.
When Tech goes into the tunnel that Omega said was a death trap, the announcer says that it looks like a couple of blaster brains took the Nellis Express to Lotho Minor. Lotho Minor is the junk world that first appeared in the Clone Wars Season 4 episode Brothers, which is where Sauvage of Press found our boy Maul. Love that freaking little nugget.
Blaster brains to Lotho Minor.
So good.
All right.
All right. Now, these, I don't know if they're so much as Easter eggs. I just thought they were funny, and I was like, I feel like I should share this because I read it and I love the names of these. So can I also read to you the list of alcoholic drinks in Sid's parlor that we see on display in the background?
Of course, I'm ready.
And I don't know which is which.
That's okay.
I could have taken the time to figure out which drink is which, but I was like, screw that, I'm not doing it. All right, so we got an Andoan, dark blue milk, a deep core, a Muftin, and Uda Gouda. Love the name Uda Gouda. Reminds me of Gouda cheese. Reactor coolant, a thermal detonator, which I know the thermal detonator is that one right there because it looks like a thermal detonator. And
Yes.
then a Wyron's Reserve.
Huh. I would say the reserve is probably like one of the whiskey looking type bottles.
Probably.
I know the thermal detonator, I do know they have at Galaxy's Edge, like Pepsi and Sprite.
Oh, I've
in
seen that.
the shape of a
Yeah.
thermal detonator, and people like actually got stopped on their way, like bringing the cans
Oh
back
my God.
from at airports. 'Cause they're like, what is this? But yeah, I thought that was that you can get at Ugas.
So that was all of the Easter eggs I found. I'm sure there's more that I missed. I'm going to definitely do some digging and diving on Twitter later on. But that's still a lot of Easter eggs that I found.
Yeah, there was a lot going on this episode. Lots of background things.
And this is why this episode to me was so much fun. It was a callback to the Phantom Menace. There was a lot of Easter eggs. There was comedy mixed in there. Star Wars, Mario Kart.
It was pretty great. Pretty fun.
It was just an all-around fun episode. And it's still, even if a little bit, moved the story along.
Gotta sow those seeds of doubt, baby.
I'll be interested to see what's going to happen next week. That's the one thing with this series that is kind of cool is with Andor, you can kind of guess what's going to happen from week to week, at least to some extent. I have no clue with what's going to happen next week. Would you have guessed that this episode would have been Star Wars Mario Kart? Like, I never would have guessed that.
No, other than knowing that the episode name was Faster. That was the title.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that this is what the episode would be about, but it was a fun one.
It was good. Enjoyable.
Any final thoughts on the episode?
No, it was a good time. I'm loving Bad Batch. I think it's so fun that we had a dark, gritty episode last week. Turn around, we got a fun, lighthearted episode, and it's been a good time.
And that's one of the things I do really like about Star Wars animation is it allows you to kind of take a week off from just being like, oh my God, not, super dramatic, super serious, people getting killed. We could take a week off from that, just kind of chuckle a little bit, have some fun. The animation also allows the creators to throw in there a bunch of species and different worlds. So you don't have to twist my leg to watch Star Wars animation, but yeah, this is like a prime example of why I love the cartoon so much.
Absolutely. It's fun time, good time. And now I'm going to go watch something super dark and scary, probably.
What have you been watching, Dark?
I'm still watching Dark. I was also thinking about rewatching the premiere episode of The Last of Us because,
If any of you have not watched The Last of Us and you're not sure if you want to, oh man, the pilot episode, holy crap. It was really, 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 really good. Spectacular. And we just finished Station 11, which I'm already seeing people compare the two. They're similar, but different. But watching Station 11 and then finishing that series and then going right into The Last of Us, pretty great.
Do you have any last thoughts?
Just love this episode. I literally was like, I was laughing as I was watching this episode. I was smiling a bunch as I was working on my notes. I was like getting kind of giddy about the episode. I was super excited to watch it again. Like, this was just a really, really fun episode for me. And like I said, I think to me, it's one of my favorite Bad Batch episodes. It felt very nostalgic, but in a completely like new way. It didn't feel like it was an absolute rip of anything we've seen before, which is dope. So yeah, I just really, really enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, super fun. All right, cool.
I think that's a good spot to leave it at.
Yeah, this is a good time.
So now's your chance, you jabronis. If you had not, like this freaking video. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Season 2, Episode 4 of The Bad Batch. What'd you think of our boy Teo? Did you think he was... Did you enjoy his goofball antics like Danny Girl and I did? Also, could we just one last time... Let's go back to it. What'd you think of Omega putting in work on Wrecker? Making our boy Wrecker sad and have to lose More Mantel mix. Let me know down. Also, can I just tell you, I have no clue if Mantel mix is supposed to be like, what's that caramel popcorn?
Cracker Jacks? Pop.
Cracker Jacks. I love Cracker Jacks. I love baseball. So like when I was a kid, go to Yankees games and I'd get Cracker Jacks. So like I absolutely love Cracker Jacks, and it reminds me of Cracker Jacks. I have no clue if that's what Mantel mix is inspired by.
Was it the freaking Pittsburgh game where I went to go find you Cracker Jacks and I was gone for literally like...
I think so.
It was like an hour.
Like, where's Danielle? Where did she go? To find Danny Boy some Cracker Jacks.
Opposite side of the stadium, because there were only 2 stands in the whole stadium that sold Cracker Jacks, and I was being a good wifey.
I love Cracker Jacks. So yeah, how happy Omega looks on the screen, that's how I get when I get some Cracker Jacks on a summer day and I get to watch baseball. That's me. All right, well, that's a good spot to leave it, guys. If you haven't liked this video, let us know down in the comments what you thought of the episode. If you haven't subscribed to Star Wars Transmissions, what the hell are you doing, you jabroni? Get on that. Subscribe to the channel. We got shorts that we drop regularly. Danny Girl and I do these breakdowns every week. We got the weekly Q&As going where I answer your questions. We got a lot of good stuff going on with the channel. So support us. Give us a subscribe. It's always great to be able to speak with you guys and share the love of Star Wars. But with that said, my friends, may the Force be with you. And stay nerdy.